but we have a much better one. What a day that will be. There is coming a day when the heart shall come. No more clouds in the sky, no more tears to dim the eye. All is peace forevermore on that happy golden shore. What a day, glorious day that will be. What a day that will be when my Jesus I shall see, and I look upon his face, the one who saved me by his grace. Oh, who takes me by the hand and leads me to the promised land. What a day, glorious day that will be. There'll be no sorrow there, no more burdens to bear, no more strife, no more pain, no more parting over there. And forever I will be with the one who died for me. What a day, glorious day that will be. What a day that will be when my Jesus I shall see, when I look upon his face, the one who saved me by his grace. When he takes me by the hand and leads me to the promised land. What a day, glorious day that will be.
Chairs and set upstairs. Feel free to do that.
We'll use the chair up just
Okay, you can do that too. Good morning, come on in. We switch things around. I'm going to make the introduction after I ask this young man to open our time in prayer. Dick, would you open our time in prayer, please?
Heavenly Father, gracious Lord, Savior of the fallen, we're so grateful for your love that brings us together, and the love, Lord, that draws us before you to kneel in prayer and include you as our Savior. We're so wonderfully blessed by your love. Father, and while we're here this morning to look and celebrate the past, we can't help but see the future and being with you forever. I'm so blessed and excited about that, but equally excited about the time we've had here in the last few days and that we're about to have. I pray, God, that you continue to draw us closer to you and use us, Lord, for your glory, for your honor. And may every word spoken here this morning reflect nothing but your glory.
I deliberately chose to introduce him afterward because I thought he might have a difficult time after he did. Dick came, when did you first come to camp here?
7.
And in this chapel. And Dick went through some rough days after coming to camp. And when Perry was here as the director the first time, Vic had just come through some rough days and Perry invited him to come down and work here. And Vic became the assistant director. And the last time that I was here working, we worked together and it was just a good summer. And you might want to tell the ones coming there to come to the back door instead of the front door. That's Bill trying to come this way. He met his bride here. The summer that we were here, and how long were you married? 32 years. And it was discovered that, Tony, you knew that.
Tim asked me to come this way. It was probably a practical joke.
You say you're a practical joke.
Yes. In my town, I mean church.
Your husband's sitting back there.
I'll join you up.
But Vic came and served as the executive director and met Sharon here. 32 years of marriage, living in this area. And then, how long ago was that, Vic?
3 years ago this July.
3 years ago, this past July, it was discovered she had a brain tumor. And I thought it was one of those that was going to be operated on and taken care of easily. It didn't happen that way. And she went home to be with her Savior. And thinking the next, Vic's not too far away from retiring. I think we're going to be able to see a lot more of them around here those days.
Amen.
Which will be a mighty blessing. But when you do share your testimony today, we are videoing this. And unless you ask us not to, okay? Unless you ask us not to, we're going to record these and use a lot of them. I mean, we're going to record them all. But if you ask us not to use yours, we're going to be using them on Facebook and things like this. So after the service is over, if you'd rather yours was not used, just let us know. But be sure to tell us who you are and whether it's your first time here at camp this weekend and it's impacted you, or you've been coming here for over 50, 60 years like some of us have been. Let us know that. And then share. We're going to be sharing and singing. We don't plan on anybody preaching today, except that the Holy Spirit's going to preach through what's shared here. If you tell a funny joke, not a funny joke, a funny story from your time here, that's okay, but our emphasis is on what Jesus did for me here at the camp. So, I mean, we're not going to say, oh, sit down, you're telling one of your story of something funny. It's okay to do that, but emphasize the impact that Jesus made on me here at the camp, okay? And how many of you know who this young man is? Some of you don't.
I'm in his family last year.
Well, Matt has become a very, very vital part of this team. He is the assistant director, and he handles so much of the operations that go on. Since I've come back on staff in February, the three of us, Matt or Brew, and Perry and I, the relationship has just been terrific. And he's not like me with the big mouth. He's much more quiet and reserved. But he still gets up and leads stuff. But he's going to come around with the microphone. Feel free to come up here and talk. But we want everybody to hear. Like, we should have taken the microphone to Vic, because some of you may not have been able to hear very well what Vic says. That's okay, he did. And but we want to share. Jesus touched my life at Lake Swan, how my life was changed by God at Lake Swan. Who wants to start?
I will.
And at least stand in terms so the people can see you.
Okay. Okay, this is better than the promised land of Moses going into the promised land. It's the opposite.
40 years in Florida with my family, knowing grandma for 12 years. 36 years church home. The last 4 years, God just started everything with 2016. And this is my Lake Camp experience when I finally got enough to kind of appreciate it, because it's 20 years ago where we were, Libby and me knew Martha Parker. So this is how we are remembering her too in my life. And my pastor lifted me out of broken house circumstances, and I have a beautiful home that I'm kind of missing my bed covers again. So this is the one, how God led me here to see Gigi, and then we all remember Billy Graham together. And that's the end right now. I'm willing to stop.
Thank you, Dee.
Is it on video? Oh, good.
Give her name too. Give her name.
Yeah.
Dee McGovern, author, Google my name for my books. Christian faith.
Might as well get mine over with.
I'm glad we're meeting here. Perry Robbins. When the chapel was reversed and the platform was up there, we used to come through those doors because most of the stuff was across the road. In 1968, I graduated from high school and was working at a grocery store in Savannah, Georgia. Went by a friend's place who had a florist shop on the weekend, and Betty Griner said, "Perry, I'm going to Lake Swan Camp this weekend, you want to come?" And didn't take any encouragement. I said, yes. So I rearranged schedules to get Monday and Tuesday off. Came to camp, and very first thing Ray said was, "Perry, you've got to stay. We're desperate for men counselors." Again, it didn't take much. Called my dad. "Dad, how about see about getting the rest of the week off for me?" And that was a done deal. This was just kind of coincidental. That same week, Tony came as a junior counselor to camp, and that's where we met. And this past June was 50 years ago that happened. And ended up staying a second week. I won't go into a lot of details about how all that worked, but again, coincidentally, and it was those 2 weeks when God really began a relationship. We celebrated this last month, 48 years, as she says, of marital bliss. Kind of tongue-in-cheek. But I am really thankful for the way the Lord works and for the way coincidences and outside non-believers' eyes seem to be, but for the way that God works in such a specific way. And I could not ask, would not even want to think about what life would have been without her. I'm just so thankful.
Can I request a song? I don't have a, can we sing Family of God? The Lake Swan Camp.
I'm so glad I'm a part of the family of God. I've been washed in the fountain, cleansed by His blood. Join heirs with Jesus as we travel this song. For I'm part of the family of I'm so glad I'm a part of the family of God. I've been washed in the fountain, cleansed by His blood. Join heirs
sing, feel free to stay seated. That's part of being family. We worship in different ways. And it's the beauty of who we are. There's another one of those Rollins kids that wants to say something.
Yeah, in my brothers and sisters church, we always held hands on the song.
Well, Frank, I didn't know if I could talk today, but he said, I said, I'm rather shy. He said, I know that.
What is that?
That's all. Gonna hold me up here. Well, you know, last night, Friday night, when we were talking about camp and how the Lord had blessed us and called us and used us through camp, I couldn't think of any stories. And then Frank admonished us to really seek the Lord. So I walked out to the motel kind of late, and the minute my head hit the pillow after asking the Lord earlier, tell me, Lord, what should I say? I heard this word, well, you have a godly heritage. And as I thought about it, I thought, well, I've got that verse wrong because the Bible says you have a goodly heritage. But as you think about it, they really go hand in hand. So Lake Swan Camp is part of my godly and goodly heritage. And I know that every time there was any kind of altar call or commitment to the Lord, I was probably always there because that's how we were brought up as a family. And that's why I wanted to talk right after the family of God. I can hardly sing that song now because I lost my voice, but also because my dad sang it all the time. And I'm just so thankful that he brought us up in his care. And through all the difficulties of life, we can count on him. I've been looking at a lot of YouTube videos, and there's one I really like that talks about convergence. And so all that has been deposited in each of us through Lake Swan Camp and through our heritage is now coming out in our latter years, which are supposed to be the better years. So I'm looking forward to that. God used me separately in our family for a different purpose. My dad dedicated all of his sons to missions real early in life. There was a song that he sang. And I often wondered why he didn't dedicate me in that way. But I knew he did in his heart, but I guess he didn't want to see me go overseas. I'm not sure. But I'm glad that he has a plan for each of us and that there's still better days ahead. I have thought my days of really serving the Lord were over and that I would just be closet prayer. But he has other things in mind. No, I know it's an important thing, but sometimes you want a little bit more, you know. My heart is for evangelism, and I'm so happy to finally find a church close to my house so I can participate in that in my community.
What's your name, young lady?
Oh, Nancy Wallace Kahn.
And who's the handsome guy that came down here with?
Bill Kahn. I begged him to come, and I think he's had more fun than I have. Because he doesn't like to travel. I call him my jungle buddy, because he grew up in the Amazon jungles with his parents as missionaries.
And when was your first year here? Harry's was 1962.
Well, I'm not sure. I came to camp several years, and then I got to live here one summer, if you remember.
Yes, I do. Special lady, special man.
Well, Lake Swan is a very special place to us because my husband's grandfather built this building. And he brought John Victor down here to start his work and provided the tent. So my mother-in-law worked here. My husband worked here as a chef for 15 years. I worked here for 20 years. So we're very vested in Lake Swan Camp because we know what it means to other people into the future. And when Eric took over and I saw the camp starting to grow again and to expand, I was very, very excited to see what God is doing again. Because for a while it looked like maybe camp was at its end. And I didn't want that to happen because even if one person comes to know the Lord Jesus Christ in this camp, it's worth it. And my husband's grandfather, as I said, brought John Linder down here. And just think if he hadn't obeyed the Lord, and gave that tent, this wouldn't be here, Billy Graham would have been here. Trinity Bible College would have been there. Well, one person does for the Lord, you may not know it now, but in eternity you're going to find out.
How are you?
Name.
How are you?
My name is Betty Thomas Bean. I didn't grow up here, I grew up in Pennsylvania, went to Edinburgh Camp, but all Christian camps are wonderful.
By the way, Betty, one of the founders of Edinburgh was Frank Smith. So that's when Dad's first church was right near where Edinburgh was, and he helped start that camp. Now, as we go along, feel free to say, just as we heard, can we sing such and such? And that's a part of what we do here. So, who's next? And we're going to have him hold on to the microphone.
Okay.
Because that helps with the timing, and it gives you freedom.
Is he gonna hold yours too?
Are you saying I look like a preacher?
Yeah, we know you're right. I just want to touch on a few things. Well, first, years ago, I don't know if the same wood in the stage there is the same wood when it was back there or not. Because some of it, is it there?
We tried to do that, but as we tried to take up the flooring back there to use it, it was so hard and splintered so badly that we could not reuse it. And that, since we had to do the platform anyway, we decided just to do the whole thing. The other thing too is when we took the wood off the platform, instead of it being a floor that was built and then the platform built on top of it, they raised up the joist. There was no flooring underneath the platform. So when we took the top flooring off, then we had to take it back down and run additional flooring there plus the platform. So we had no choice but to use the new flooring.
I actually have some of the flooring in my backyard, and I'm hoping to put it on the wall of the shed I have out there. It's just bare beams, and I'm going to use that for a woodworking. I've been using it for a woodworking shop, so that's my eventual plan. I haven't got much done on that so far, though.
Okay, I just want to touch on a couple of things that are, it's all history, what we're talking about, I guess. Number one, my voice is not usually this deep. I'm just getting a cold. So, I'm from Georgia. This is Georgia connection here. Perry, John, Mark, we all lived up in the Savannah, Fort Wentworth, Bloomingdale, Pooler area. We went to the same high school years ago. That's when our hair was more intact and darker. Anyway, the Rollins boys were men. Back then, boys were all excellent baseball players. Terry, if I remember, played center field. John was a wonderful pitcher. And I can't speak much to Mark and Timmy, but those were great days. Back in those days, what now is the Southeastern Conference of the Christian Missionary Alliance, it's just Florida. Florida's a big state, but back in those days, it included Georgia, and if I remember correctly, it went on up to Carolina, maybe Alabama, I don't know. He just dated me there many years ago. Anyway, those were great days. I got saved in Fort Wentworth, Georgia, in a Christian Missionary Alliance church, Fort Wentworth Christian Missionary Alliance, and I was saved on the second Sunday of November 1970. The evangelist, we were having it wasn't my church at the time, there was a revival there, and I went to the church because a young lady had invited me there, okay? Hey, don't stop doing that, that's always a good thing. And we may sing this afterwards at some point. It only takes a spark to get a fire going. Well, with that particular revival and particular service, actually the Lord had been speaking to me for some time, but it was at that point that I gave my heart and life to the Lord. And subsequent to that, fast forward to the summer, I came here, Lake Swan Camp, when not this stage, but the stage was there, and the big fans that Frank spoke of, and the noise and all that, God further worked in my heart. Perry's dad, Walter Rollins Sr., was my counselor over in the honey hut. And he introduced me, well, once I gave my heart and life to serve the Lord, whatever it may be, and began that journey right here at that altar. I was staying, like I said, in the honey hut over there. I don't think we called it the honey hut then. This has various names over the years. But anyway, he was one of my counselors. There was a bunch of us over there, a whole bunch. He introduced me to Dr. Linder. Not just introduced me, he took me down to his house at Old Lake Swan, and we sat and visited for quite a bit. Blew my mind and captured my heart. Subsequent to that, I ended up going to Trinity College, where Marco Farrow is now the president. That Trinity used to be in Temple Terrace when Billy Graham was there. Then it went to Dunedin. It actually moved several times. But I went to that same school, and now that we have a Billy Graham chapel, or name for Billy, there was also down there a Billy Graham room, which was of size. That was one of my first jobs at the school, was to take care of that room, the cleaning and the bathrooms, all of that. So it's just wonderful. Now, Dr. Mender, there's not a guy in here, probably a girl that ever worked here that didn't do dishes at Lake Swan Camp. I used to come down come back from school, that's actually coming up, with Dr. Mender and Lorraine to do dishes. And that was an early generation. I might not look that old, but I'm up there. Okay. But anyway, those were great days. Also, the Georgia connection, the Trinity connection, the Billy Graham. My dear wife was born in Georgia, but grew up mostly in Maine. She was a military brat, if you will. But she went to Toccoa back in the days that Frank spoke of, where I came to work at camp with Perry and so many others. We would go to Toccoa and recruit summer staff. That's actually where I met my dear wife, was that I'm trying to remember the name. I'm getting Nancy, I know how to do it. What was the name of the hangout for all the people underneath it? Eagle's Nest. That's where I met Sharon. Okay. Well, that's where I met Sharon. And as Perry so well articulated at her memorial service, when it came to hiring, it had to do with Perry, Ray Warner, if some of you know him. Well, there was 3 of us that were reviewing the resumes or applications for the most part. She didn't make my cut list. But thank God for Perry and Ray, who thought the world that she would be good. She was this little lily white Yankee girl with a red nose because it was so cold. I wasn't impressed, but boy was I ever impressed years later. Anyway, that's a great connection. But the evangelist that was speaking, I don't know what ever happened. He was Eddie West. He was a great evangelist. He touched my heart. I gave my life to the Lord. Like I said before that, but then I dedicated my life to the Lord wherever it leads. And what's interesting, I was at the table last night with an older couple, never met them in my life. They live at Park of the Palms, wonderful folk. And just as we visited, all of us have had different roads. Our journey for the Lord has taken us down different roads. But we intersected, a lot of us right here. We're here again. And one day, the road that we're traveling, they're all going to end up in glory. Praise God. It's good to see you all. Good to be here.
It only takes a spark to get higher going, and soon follows around and warm up living slowly. That power is with us.
to your spouse at Lake Swan Camp, whether your spouse is here with you today or not, you should keep standing because everybody else sits down so you get an idea how many did meet your spouse. So get a picture. I'm sitting. I got mine close. All right. So these are just a few of the many, many couples who, because of Lake Swan, that connection became a lifelong connection.
I guess I'll share. So Frank, you want to hold the mic for me? I didn't want to actually come to Lake Swan Camp initially, and I guess I got to kind of backtrack a little bit, tell you why that was. When I went to college, my main focus was golf. That was my #1 priority in life. I'm a professional golf management major. I started playing golf at the age of 4, and I started playing tournaments at the age of 8. I was so young I didn't even have an age group. They put me with the 10, 11-year-olds, and they all beat me until I turned 10, and then I started being able to win some tournaments. So golf was extremely important to me in my life, and that's how I chose my college. I grew up Catholic, and my first day, it was kind of a head knowledge of God, not a heart knowledge of God for me. For others, it could be different. But when I went to college, before the first day of classes, I got introduced to Christian Campus House, and that was the on-campus ministry. And by the time I was a sophomore, I got baptized at a camp. But following my freshman year of college, I was looking for a summer job, and I wanted to either do construction or work at a golf course. And I couldn't find a job because I didn't know how to look for one. And I heard of a guy at Christian Campus House say that there was a Salvation Army camp in southern Indiana looking for camp counselors. So I said, well, that sounds a lot more fun than working at a factory I worked at the previous summer. So I signed up for it. They hired me for some reason, and I went down there, and I just had a really good summer. It really stretched me. Being a camp counselor is a unique experience. It stretches you as you kind of got to play the role of a pastor, a teacher, a coach, a friend, an older sibling, and a parent all in one. And you got to do it different in the mix of those with each of the different groups that you get all summer long. And they all kind of test you and stretch you in ways to make you a better person. So that was a great experience for me. The next 4 summers I worked at a YMCA camp in northern Indiana. And at that point I had graduated from college. I was looking for a new job. So I started sending out some applications. And I wanted to go to a different area of the country, try a different type of camp, widen my experience a little bit. At that point I felt like God was calling me to work at camp full time. I hadn't grown up going to camp really. I did go to summer camp, never even thought about going to summer camp. Just didn't know anyone that did even. So I decided, but God kind of brought me into that because of my relationship that I had developed with Him. And so I ended up applying a whole bunch of different places, Texas, Colorado, Arizona, and then Florida. And the only thing I thought about Florida was it has old people and rains a lot. So I was like, that's where people go to retire from Ohio. So I'm not ready to retire. I'm not going to be a snowbird. But I told God, hey God, I'm too dumb for multiple choice. So if you could just go ahead and shut all the doors but one, and make it obvious that's the door I should go through. Well, He did. He turned down all the other jobs. And the only reason I knew about Lake Swan Camp was that first camp experience I had in southern Indiana. I worked with Stacy Ferris, who ended up being director here before Perry. And she was looking to add someone to the staff at that time, and we've been in communication during the years. That's the beautiful thing about camp, and what you guys experienced this weekend, is even though they're maybe miles apart, that connection that you had just from a short time at camp, we only knew each other like 10 weeks or so, where we were actually in physical proximity of each other, is a friendship that you've had for years. So Stacey actually came back earlier this summer and taught our lifeguards and got them certified. So, but that distance doesn't mean a whole lot when you've spent so much time in unity at camp. So I told God to close all the doors but one, and He ended up closing them all but this Florida job. And I prayed, God, use this experience however you want it, whether it's a terrible experience, whether it's a great experience. I'm trusting You to be the experience I need to have to help me grow as a person and my faith in Christ, and he's really done that. And it's been a great experience. I met my wife here at a Bible study nearby and through camp as well. She worked here for years, summers before me. And then I just fell in with Friendship Bible Church, which is very closely connected to this camp, also Alliance. And that became my first real church family too. And now I serve as an elder there. And I would say that to kind of, not being bragging about that, but just to show you the level of connection I kind of have with that church and just the family that I've developed at that church. And actually proposed to my wife somewhere around right in that area, this room too. So Carrie remembers that. I kicked him out of the office because we were going to Skype with her parents who were in England afterwards. But it's been a great experience. Watching my girls grow up here, I got 3 little girls, and just the way that the guests have really embraced my family has been great. And seeing my girls too start to develop relationships with the staff and favorites, and they love to help out. One story about my daughter Emily before I stop. I was talking to the Deltona Alliance Women's Group came up for a retreat, and I was telling them how Emily loves to go with me and lock up rooms afterwards. What she does is she has, we try to turn everything off, make sure nothing tastes too bad before we have a chance to clean it. And she'll come through and she'll check everything. Well, she checks to make sure there's nothing but just water in the toilet. Somehow became her job. And also she looks for loose change on the floor that's left behind. She likes that part a little bit more than the other part, but she has to do at least something else besides that. So she's been helpful. She loves to wipe down tables in the dining room, stuff like that. But I was telling this story to them, and I was saying that one day I was going around, and she was such a good attitude, being very helpful, even as a 4-year-old. And I was like, we got 3 rooms left. We're at the Lakeview Lodge, and I said, hey God, she hasn't found any money yet. Please, in the next few rooms, let her find something. The very next room we go into, someone had left a $5 bill next to the sink as a tip for the housekeeping staff. I've been doing a lot of cleaning lately, so I felt justified in giving that to my daughter. And so I was telling that story to the Deltona Alliance women, and so they said, make sure they check that she helps you check room 5. Where they're staying. So we went in room 5, and I kind of saved that one for last. And we're going through, and we're not finding any money, and she's getting a little bit disappointed, and she goes in there, and they had left out a bunch of coins, including, I think, a bunch of pennies in the shape of a cross, and then they left someone left a $5 bill. She ended up getting like $7 or $8. She probably would have been just happy with the pennies. But she came up to me and said, I'm so happy I found all this money. So anyways, it's been a blessing to my family.
Your name once more?
Matt Verbaker, Assistant Camp Director. I started working here in September 1st, 2010.
I'm sorry. I'm wagging around. I have to hold the whole mic. My name is Jim Pickett. My wife and I did not meet here. We weren't married here. As best that I can recall, I've never been to this camp, never even heard of this camp, until one day in Vesper, Alabama, Mark Rollins came and dinner to start our youth program. Well, all he could talk about was Lake Swan Camp. Lake Swan Camp this, wait for this, it was just only got to be ridiculous, because that's all they talked about. Well, time passed. The company I worked for transferred to Florida. We got down here in 1986, and after a few years, we came up to family camp here at Lake Swan Camp. And we fell in love with it. We absolutely fell in love with it. So fast forward to today, I'm just going to make a long story short. Deborah, my wife, and I said I'm Jim, right? And Rhonda, my sister, and Mom, my mom, come up here in the summertime. And we volunteer. And the best that I can recall is we probably got, between the 3 of us, we probably got close to, if not 1,000 hours in the last couple of years volunteering here.
God.
We do a lot of things here. We've worked in housekeeping, we've worked in kitchen, we've worked in maintenance, almost, and sometimes in maintenance, but not really. Maintenance is not my thing. But one thing we do is Perry asked us to run the snack shack for him. So we said, okay. So the first time we went to Sam's, he gave me a list and a credit card and said, go to Sam's and buy this. We went to Sam's. $800 worth of candy. $800 worth. And the next day we went to Walmart and bought $600 worth of Cokes. And did the same thing 2 weeks later. We pump a lot of candy and Cokes to that little shack over there, let me tell you. But it's turned into a ministry for the three of us. Because we get to talk to the kids, we get to listen to them, we get to play with them kind of sort of. But we minister to them in our own way. And we've grown in the fact that we love to. We're already planning next year. And sadly, we leave tomorrow to go on vacation. So, if you want to come up and be a minister, this is the perfect place to do it. This man right here will find you something to do. I guarantee. Thank you very much.
What time's the gift shop open today?
Gift shop will open at 1 o'clock after lunch. Now, I know that most of you probably already been through there, and if we get somebody there between 1 and 1:30, we'll stay open. We'll stay open to 2. But if there's just a few people coming through at 1:30, we just may close. We're across the street in an RV. If you absolutely miss it, and you absolutely have to have a root beer float or a piece of candy or a sweatshirt or whatever, come and knock on my door. I'll get the key. We'll run over, you and me. We'll just do whatever you need, and then we'll go lock it back up again.
I want to expand on what Jim said because I had never been to Lake Swan, never heard of it until I started hearing Deborah and Jim talk about it. And I came once or twice over 10 years before I moved to Florida 5 years ago, and I started coming here fairly regularly. Well, last year when we volunteered, one little boy is what makes it worthwhile for me. Last year we had a little boy here with one of the little Baptist groups. Actually, it was a large group because they were exclusive, so they had lots of kids, close to 300. And there was one little boy who was a troublemaker all week last year. He was destructive. He was mean. And we just dreaded that little boy coming in the snack shack because we knew what it was going to be like with him there. We had to watch every time he walked into the gift shop because he was stealing from us. The little boy was here this year, and the Lord had done a wonderful work in his heart. He was sweet, he was loving, and you could see he was a totally changed person. And we could see that in the snack shack. And that makes everything we do worthwhile, even though all we're doing most of the time is selling candy. But it's a ministry for the Lord, and we can see, just watching the kids, what the Lord is doing. I don't know the little boy's name, but I talked to his counselors, and they said, he's from a very troubled home, and they said, we have really had to work with this little boy to introduce him to Christ. But we can see through the little we're doing, what the Lord has done. And I just praise him for it.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for saving my soul. Thank you, Lord, for making me whole. Thank you, Lord, for giving to me thy great salvation. enough to make me sing. He's coming soon. He's coming soon. With joy we welcome his return. Lord, my Lord, you praise God, he's coming soon.
Is there anyone here who your first time here was before Ray Brumbach came as council? I don't think there is. As the director, you were here.
Oh, no, before, sorry.
Before, like, no, there are a lot of us that were here when he was here as director. How many came to camp the first time when Ray Brumbach? So that was from 1961 through 1976. How many came for the first time in those years? See, a high percentage of us. And young lady, what was your maiden name? Oh, that's Ray Brumbach's sister, just in case any of you didn't know. Gary, Ray's oldest, was born just before Becky was born. So she grew up with her nephew, didn't know him, he's pretty much the same age. How many came in the, okay, not counting Ray Brumbach years, but let's say 75 to 85, your first time here. Quite a few of you. 85 to 95. Okay, there's a number, and some of them grew up here.
98.
Okay, 95 to 2005, so that would be you. 2005 to 2015. Aha. The Rollins grandkids. And we have a couple that had to get born before they could come. And 2015 on, anybody besides Miss, did you raise your hand already? Miss Sandy? Miss Hannah, when did you raise your hand? Is that? Okay. So, I mean, we all came here for the first time sometime. And what a delight it's been. And we're not done here. We'll go as long as we really feel that we're supposed to keep going. We're not going to drag it, but we don't have any place else to go till lunchtime. So.
I'll say something. Yeah, you know, so I shared last night, obviously this is a place that God provided for me to take care of my mom, but I'm going to just go away from that and just talk about what God. Prior to that, I've been in ministry a long time, and it had been an extremely hard year, to the point where I was actually questioning getting out of ministry. And this place has been the place where God has just begun to just restore me and refresh me and confirm that call. He said, no, you're not supposed to go that way, you're supposed to go this way. And so even this trip, I came up, the only reason I came up here is for this weekend to celebrate and to hear all these amazing stories. But when I came back, my mom's place had been destroyed, which just devastated me. And I just said, okay, that's it. I want to pack it up and get out of town. And the only thing that kept me coming back was the fact that I had made a commitment. And so even this visit being here, in the last 6 months or 8 months that I've been coming, God has just been filling me up, speaking to me, reassuring me. But even this visit, I went up in my car after a little picnic and just took a little snooze under one of the trees, and God's like, I'm not done with you yet. I have more for you to do. And that has just really, in a season that's been so difficult, it's just been refreshing to say, Sandy, I've got more. And then last time, like, can we just get this video over and just so I can get home? I really kept, so if you had found time to video me, I would have been out of here and I would have missed all these amazing stories. So, being able to share that, yeah, okay, it may have been helpful to everyone else, but it was great for me because it's part of what God's called me to do, is to share my story. He's like, see, I'm not done with you yet. So I'm just thankful for the opportunity, and it has truly restored. And I'm not part of your past,
but I'm telling you, I know I'm going to be part of the future of Lake Swan. I told Mary this morning, you know, I want to be a part of this legacy. I want to be a part of more and more kids coming to give their hearts to the Lord, and I look forward to it. So I'm grateful that this has been a place where God's been able to speak to my heart and just restore. So thank you.
He's still working on me to make me what I need. It took him just a week to make the moon and stars, the sun and the earth and Jupiter and Mars. Love me the patient he must be. He's still working on me.
When Frank was calling out the years, I told Kay, I don't fit in anywhere. I married into this group. So my first time here was 72 for the dinner to dedicate Mender home. And that began the intellectual part of my knowing about Lake Swan. And it has become a very important part of our lives since I married one of the Smith brothers. And this has become an oasis, actually. I love coming back here, and it's just great to experience the grounds, and I've watched as it's changed over the years. I don't come back very regularly because we don't live very close, but knowing that it's been such a wonderful place that God has used. My camping experience was Tacoma Falls College. That at the time I was going to camp, that was the South Atlantic District's camp. So we had air conditioned rooms and, you know, everything. So, you know, it was camp. But camps are important. The district that we are in now, we have seen our camp grow and begin to flourish. And so I do believe in the camping ministry. It becomes such a great part of a child's growing up. My name is Karen, and like I said, my first time setting foot here was 1972.
And what did you do that weekend?
Larry and I were in a singing group for Tacoma Falls, and we got to sing and meet Dr. Graham.
By the way, the camp that she's referring to in Alabama is Poplar Point Camp, and it was started by Ellen and Bob Bozeman, who had been on staff here in days before that, and they had been at the Mount Olive Church where Larry and Karen are presently serving, right outside of Alabama. Right outside of Alabama. Right outside of Birmingham. And they had had when they went back to the same church, they felt called of God to start Poplar Point. And when I served in that district, I had the privilege of being the chairman of the board at Poplar Point. And they began the process while I was chairman of the board of building a gymnasium there, which is completed. So it's part of our vision for the future here. So, boy, a young lady just walked in that we all need to say hi to.
This ain't over till the fat ladies.
Okay. Are you going to sing? Is that what you were saying?
Greg does better than myself.
Greg sings better than you?
Yes.
She's going to say something.
I want to tell you guys something. You should come. Coming and taking time out from to celebrate. It's
one. If you come on these grounds in 1961, you would have thought, oh my goodness, the Lord's made a terrible mistake. Sure he did. Leaving Toccoa, that little town of Toccoa, I thought, please get us out of here. And he did.
Brian came into the fire.
We didn't even have a stop sign or anything down there with the light.
There was a stop sign.
Oh, there was? For the other people? I know it's not. Anyway, it was very discouraging. But last night showed me the plan that God had overall. And it was just marvelous. God told me, all the workers, I don't know how you got all those chairs up and the tables in there. It just was so pretty. And what a group we had. It was well, did you do something? And all after he put there, a little bit wider. Oh, look at that smile. But that's your dad. Okay. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm so glad you came. And I went to the old chapel. The old, the new one. And I thought, they already left. How could they have done it so quickly? After we were here 2.5 hours the other night. So, anyway, I'm glad you came. And I have relatives that didn't have transportation until just now. And I really didn't speak. I'm going to sit with Mrs. Ray's youngest sister, Becky, and Jack, and they came from Greenville, South Carolina. So we're glad that they're here. And all of you. Okay.
Speaking of the distance traveled, then coming from Greenville, how many of you came from at least 100 miles away